All right, everyone. So we'll get started. We're almost at 2 minutes after the hour. So welcome everyone to another AOS Student Research Grant seminar. Here we are again on a Monday at noon Eastern Time. My name is Robert Driver. I'm a postdoc at Duke University, and I'm just going to start off here by introducing the AOS Student Research Grant and then the seminar series. So the AOS offers funding to students and early career researchers with the AOS Student Research Grants. And each year the AOS receives uh, close to 150 applications for the AOS grants, making them highly competitive, even for a small society-based research grant. And so I want to acknowledge the substantial amount of effort that goes into writing a successful proposal. And I say this each week, but to have a successful proposal, you have to have a project that can advance the field of ornithology, but still remaining feasible as part of a graduate dissertation or that kind of size project. So the AOS Student Research Grant Seminar Series celebrates the challenging and innovative work of the AOS Student Research Grant recipients by sharing AOS funded or related work to the AOS members. And each week we'll showcase the research and research plans of a 2023 or 2022 AOS Student Research Grant winner in a seminar style format. And so we have one seminar each week from now until May 5th, and this is our fifth or fourth or fifth week. I can't remember now. And I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank the AOS and the AOS Student Affairs Committee. Thank Chris Ann Handel so much for all her help with this, and Ramona Flesher for her help as well, really working hard on these seminar series, and for Vianney, our speaker today. And so before we turn our attention to Vianney's research, I want to mention to please put your microphones on mute, which I think is default. And if you have any questions, there'll be time for a Q&A session at the end of Vianney's talk. And you can participate by either using the Q&A function in the Zoom panel, or the chat should be available to all participants as well for entering questions in the chat. Or you can raise your hand and unmute yourself, or I can unmute you and you can turn on your camera and ask your question out loud. So I'd like to remind everyone that this is an AOS sponsored event and that all participants are required to follow the AOS Virtual Meeting Event Code of Professional Conduct. And I will post a link to the AOS Virtual Meeting Code of Professional Conduct in the chat, as well as the AOS Student Affairs Committee email contact. And a third link in the chat, which is a post-seminar evaluation form. After we finish the seminar, if you wouldn't mind taking the time to fill out the post-seminar evaluation form, that really helps us make this seminar series the best it can be moving forward. Okay, so for today, Vianney Cupiche Herrera, Vianney Cupiche Herrera is currently a professor at the Intercultural Mayan University of Quintana Roo. And Vianney's academic career began with a BS in biology from the Metropolitan Autonomous University in Xochimilco, Mexico City. And Vianney went on to earn her master's degree in natural resources and rural development from EcoSur in Mexico. And from there, Vianney became a professor at the Intercultural Mayan University of Quintana Roo, UIMQROO, where she led an alternative tourism undergraduate program for 9 years. And Vianney then enrolled in a Ph.D. program in forestry sciences at Lakehead University in Western Ontario. Her PhD work investigated the impact of disturbance and conspecific attraction in Canada warblers, and was published in the Avian Conservation and Ecology, the Journal of the Society of Canadian Ornithologists, and Birds Canada. And after completing her PhD in 2024, Vianney rejoined the Intercultural Mayan University of Quintana Roo, where she is now professor and dean of the Sustainable Development Department, teaching statistics, sustainable tourism, which I think is a really cool course, as well as, of course, ornithology. So with that, I will turn it over to Vianney for her talk, The Influence of Conspecific Attraction on Habitat Choices of a Migratory Species at Risk.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. Well, as Robert said, I am a biologist and also I have experience in a variety of fields besides biology, but my passion is conservation. So I currently I am a professor in the University of Intercultural Mayan of Quintana, but my my focus is in the conservation of birds, you know. And this is part of my dissertation in my PhD that I currently earned in last year. I finished in May in 2024. And this was granted by the AUS, no? And the topic, I changed a little bit the topic, the title, but it is mainly the same, no? The influence of conspecific attraction on habitat choices of migratory species at risk. That is Canada Warbler, no? So, well, I'm going to give you a brief context. Well, social interactions may provide reliable information about resource availability, allowing individuals quickly assess potential breeding sites. What does this mean? Well, conspecific attraction is one of the main social interactions among organisms, and especially in birds. This is when other individuals are attracted by the same species, no, are like drawn to get to the same area because of the presence of others. So in this case, for some species, it has been hypothesized that it has several advantages. No, that is an indicator of habitat quality. The other is that they have like more advantage to getting mates, and also the density helps to protect themselves from other predators. No, it's like a way that they can protect from other animals. You know. So conspecific attraction for some species are an strategy for saving time while they are seeking or searching for breeding habitats. Instead of taking so much time for doing, they then can use these cues and it's easier for them than to arrive to a place that could be better, you know, for their fitness. You know? Well, my species of study then was Canada Warbler because it's a long distance migrant that is a species at risk in Canada. That it has been in decline since 1960, and also even though that it has been recovered the last years, it is still considered in concern, no, in Canada. Because they migrate so long, they spend less time in breeding grounds than other species. This species arrives late May, sometimes even sometimes early June, and they are leaving in August, sometimes in September. So it's a really short window that they have for breeding season. So they may rely on this type of cues for seeking the habitat. Also, it has been hypothesized that they are sensitive to fragmentation. Well, also there are studies that say that they found that is sensitive to fragmentation and human disturbance. These things also may pose a challenge to this species in finding good habitats. That's why also they can be reliant in conspecific cues because of this challenge of having the habitat fragmentation. So at the same time, it has been found the presence and the higher densities of these species in post-harvest areas. And again, no, it could be because of the influence of conspecific attraction. But it has been really tested in the works of Flockhart and Hunt. They mainly test in areas where it already was the species. So I wanted to test using artificial playbacks to see if during the pre-breeding season if really the species is arriving due to this cue or because of the vegetation cues, or maybe the combination of both. No? So because it has been tested, the influence of conspecific attraction in harvested and in unharvested landscapes, I wanted to test this with this species. My study was carried on in Ontario, in the Northwestern Ontario, more in specific, because also it was a place that it doesn't have too much information about Canada Warbler. And also it has the particularly that we can see in my slide, the area that is bordered with this color, orange color, is a forest management unit that is under logging or managed forest license. And also the other border that you can see in green is from a provincial park that is the most wilderness area in this park. No, it is really inaccessible. So for doing logging or those activities is almost impossible. So it's quite understood. So I use these areas for, sorry for the sounds. I use these areas for contrasting. So I have like kind of a gradient of disturbance in terms of landscape, considering Quetico as a low disturbance, and Cabagon, that is the area here with the M, that's a medium disturbance, and Shebandowan because it has like more current logging activity, I consider as a high disturbance landscape. These landscapes, I pick those based on the Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas. And also, as I mentioned, taking this information about the Forest Management Union, and also I visited those places for visual assessing. How was the level of disturbance? How was the activity in the years that I was making the study in terms of timber extraction. So I use 24 unoccupied sites. I make the in the year of 2021 and 2022, I made just simple or yes, silent point counts, just using a short playback protocol just for increasing the Canada Warbler detectability. And I identified the sites that were not occupied by this species. And also based that in the thing that Canada Warbler is kind of a species that returns every time to the same habitat, that it has high fidelity site. I assume that if I don't find the species in a site or in a point count, then the next year I'm not going to find again. No, but I verify. That's why I made an assessment during 2 years, and I started to play or start my experiment using the conspecific attraction method during the 2002 and 2003. I'm going to show you a little bit more about that. Well, these are like the examples of the study areas. You can see by the picture how was like the level of regeneration and disturbance. The first picture is from Quetico and is considered lower renewal disturbance. The medium is from the landscape in Cabagon, and the third is in Shevan, the one that it was like more logging activity and more recent. Well, this is like for explaining more a little bit my experiment. Then I had 12 control sites where I just made a short protocol of using songs and calls just for a minute playback because I just wanted to be sure that Canada Warbler wasn't there, or if it was, no. So if I didn't find the Canada Warbler in 60 meters ready or 100 meters ready, I considered that was not there, that was vacant. And then I used the other 12 treated or 12 unoccupied sites as a treated site where I'm going to play the calls and songs during 7 days. And each day was 7 hours average, the songs and calls playing. So this method was mainly during the pre-breeding season, as I said. So I started in like the third week of May, before the Canada Warbler was arriving or was just starting to be seen in the areas. And also I use certain cues, vegetation cues. No, I measure the shrub cover, the cover, canopy height, and also I determine the forest type. I use also as complement certain special layers for forest disturbance, for seeing also the grade of disturbance. I use layers from the laboratory of Maryland, the University of Maryland, that is called GLAD, or is Global Landscape Assessment or something like that. And also they give you information about where the years of logging or disturbance. So I extracted the years since harvest from those layers, and the percentage of disturbance, as I mentioned, and also from the land cover layer, I helped myself for detecting or identifying the type of forest. I used also then GLMs, or the general linear models, then to relate or detect then which variables were predicting, the habitat settlement or habitat selection of these species, integrating them as variables or predictors, the vegetation cues that I already mentioned, and also the treatment. In this case, the 7-day period playback protocol. And also I needed to build this device, special device, because what I was doing in my research, I found myself that I didn't have any information on how to build a device that helped me to reproduce the songs and calls during a long period of time. I found that one option could be FoxPro, but it was really expensive for me, and also I needed to turn on and turn off every time. Because it was not like customized for turning by itself. And I searched some papers that they mentioned that the use of FoxPro, but also they mentioned that it was customized. So I assumed that customizing the FoxPro could be an option, but it increases then the cost of also these devices. So I tried to make myself my own device, and I after several months of investing in this, I ended with this device that is made with different boards that are the main one is Arduino, that is a microcontroller that can send the information to the other boards. I use then a micro MP3 player and also a clock that is in the part I don't know if you can see my scroller, but well, there is a clock. There is the Arduino that is like the main microcontroller, and the MP3 with an SD card that it storage the calls and songs. And below this like tray is, or under, there is the battery that I use. It's a battery that can give the power of the whole system for a long period of time. And I use two speakers, one in the opposite side, for projecting the sound to both, the both places, to both sides. And also, these were like waterproof and dustproof, because it was going to be played outdoors. And I ended with a device that can work at least for 10 days without being recharged, and was totally automatic. I can program when it is going to start, when it's going to end, and when to start a call, or when to end the song. Was kind of easy to set up, and it was cheap, no, or at least more affordable than other devices. Also, I made a paper from this device. Is published in Hardware X. It is more for like, yes, technology things, and but there is available for the people that also wants to do something like this, and doesn't have too many money for doing it. Well, talking about my results, well, the best models, well, I made also, I didn't mention, sorry, with the first years I mentioned in the 2021 and 2022, I also record like the natural social aggregation. What I mean of that, talking about that, is when I arrived to certain sites and I noticed that they were already congregated, the Canada Warbler that has a higher density in those places. So I try to compare that when with the sites that were unoccupied, and I implement the experiment. How was the difference, between those places? So in the areas where I already identified the higher densities of Canada Warbler, these were more driving by the shrub, also the canopy cover, canopy head, and time since harvest, or time since logging. So what I found that they were like preferring sites with high shrub cover, also with high or yes canopy tree cover higher than 50%, and also with the canopy height was an average of 10 meters or more. And in terms of time since harvest, they were like picking the areas with less years of regeneration. So they were like recently logging activity in those places. In contrast to where I place the speakers, in the place that I place the speakers, the treatment, I attract more individuals to the places that were understood, and also with high shrub cover. So shrub cover is kind of the main vegetation cues for Canada Warbler, or it seems to be that is more important for them. And in the case of pre-breeding settlement, the treatment was one of the main drivers. So it is like suggesting that Canada Warbler is also getting attracted by the other individuals. here I show also relating to other variables that I measured or at different scales. From each side, I identified, as I mentioned, the year since harvest, also the type of forest. So the species is selecting more areas with deciduous and mixed, especially mixed forest. Conifer is really rare that they are found there. Even for the experiment, the settlement, I didn't find any in coniferous forest. In terms of disturbance, again, no, in areas with high disturbance or even medium disturbance, I couldn't attract many birds. But at the landscape scale, it was like higher the density of the species in the natural aggregation that they have. So these are like these two pictures from undisturbed and disturbed areas. So overall, what I found that for attracting the species with the use of playbacks, the Canada Warbler was like more prone to be attracted in areas that were conserved or understood, but the natural aggregation was lower. No, I didn't find it to places with higher densities of these species. But the contrary is in disturbed areas. So in disturbed areas, I didn't, or I couldn't attract any bird using the playback protocol. But naturally, I found several sites that they were already congregated there. And well, in conclusion, the use of this strategy could be something that maybe increase the species in especially in unharvested areas. So if we don't use conspecific attraction, then unharvested areas can be underutilized. And with the use of this strategy, maybe we can kind of relocate the species. It is related to what I said about fragmentation. Maybe fragmentation is making that this species is selecting like the areas that they already found the other individuals that are like more easily to detect other individuals. So they are not getting into the areas that are like more conserved, and also that they are less undisturbed. It doesn't mean that the disturbed area is low quality. So that's why we need more studies to also compare these in terms of fitness to see if there is success in terms of nest establishment and also fledging and survival, to see really if undisturbed areas could be something like we call as a ecology trap, and also to verify if really undisturbed areas are more like with higher quality than the others. So in general, if undisturbed areas are better than the disturbed areas for Canada Warbler, this strategy could be something that we can use for conservation, for relocating the species in this case, and maybe for other species that also are considered at risk and that they have kind of similar behavior in terms of getting attracted by individuals from the same species. And well, finally, I want to acknowledge to the people and the institutions that support my work. CONACYT was the institution that gave me the scholarship that I had during my PhD. Ontario Parks, well, they allow me to go to Perico, and they give me also permits, and they give me the facilities to be there. The Ontario Breeding Atlas, they give me information, also data. Idea Wild also was a institution that they gave me funding for also the acquisition for the devices. MyTags also, I was related with MyTags during my PhD, and an intern come from India, I think, yes, were helping me in during the field season, the second, no, the third field season, and Lakehead, the university that I did my PhD. And well, also my personal technologists, my family. Those pictures are from my daughter and my husband, that they were helping me during the field season, in installing the devices, cheering me, taking data, and many things. So I acknowledge them, because without them, I couldn't do this research. And then, well, if you have questions or comments, I'm really happy to answer.
All right, Vianney, thank you so much. We have people clapping here. I'm sure it was a lot of field work, a lot of work out there in the beautiful Ontario forest.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to type them in. As I said before, there's a number of ways you can raise your hand or unmute yourself or type it in the chat box or the Q&A. I can start here. I guess my question is, were you surprised by these results? What was your hypothesis going in? Did you think that you would see increased attraction in the undisturbed as opposed to the disturbed, or was it a surprise?
Well, it was a little bit of surprise, because while doing, as I mentioned, the first seasons of surveys, because I really found more abundance in disturbed areas, I was worried about implementing my experiment. I was thinking that maybe I will not attract any bird in underserved areas or something like that. Yeah, I was kind of uh, yes, amazed when I started to see that, in fact, was kind of the opposite. That I get attracted individuals in sites that were vacant, that were not disturbed, and the opposite in the places that I implement the speaker that were disturbed, I didn't get them. So it was something that I didn't expect. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, so can researchers buy the box, or is the paper like an instruction for making their
Yeah,
box?
yeah. The even recently, yes, I have a video call where someone contact me from Hawaii, because they were using a system that they built for their own research, but it was not being practical right now, because they want to go in like farther places, and they need to get into helicopter. So the device that they have is like bigger and more expensive, and they want to do something smaller and more affordable. So they came across with my paper and they asked me if I can give them some support, and I made a video call with them and I explained certain things that was in my paper that they maybe didn't get it or they needed more explanation about that. And yeah, but mainly it's everything in the paper. If you go to the paper, there is a full instruction on how to build it, the material that you need, and even when where do you can get each item is. But in certain things, maybe if you don't have any previous experience building something like this, maybe it could be something difficult also to follow. But I try to do my best and I make all the instructions available and also the code, because you need a code for the Arduino board. And I make also the instructions for them for the Arduino. So everything is in the paper. But if you have questions, also you can reach me, any of you, and I'm happy to share.
Yeah, it's great. And I wanted to ask, what calls specifically or songs were used? Did you try to pick something that they're aggressive towards, or that they, maybe would use for some social interaction, or yeah, what did you choose and how did you come make that choice?
Well, I also, I didn't mention, sorry, in detail that, but during the 2022 and 2021 birth surveys, I made the test also about the calls and songs. I use this library that is called Xenocanto,
Yeah.
because I didn't have any also device for recording my own songs. So what I did was like picking the songs and calls from the area that was closest to Thunder Bay, that was Minnesota. So, but at the beginning, I was not sure if it will work. So I test them first, if they really work in the field. I play them different calls and songs. And when I realized that some of them were really attracting the species, then I use them. And I use both, songs and calls, because if I use just calls, maybe it is going to get confused the species, because it was just like maybe thinking that is kind of an alarm or something. So I needed to use a combination for getting this like the effect, of more natural environment. Yeah, but I first I tested if they really work at field.
I see. And then I wanted to ask, like, would this not apply to this would only apply to species that you sort of said this at the end, that are social, like the Canada Warbler. Um, I'm assuming th this phenomenon of them being attracted and settling in areas where they see activity is not applicable to a less social species, or other birds.
Yeah,
Um,
well, there is some uh, there are papers that they have uh, test also in other birds. It seems to be that even though the um, migratory birds or even resident birds, it has it have this behavior, even though that they are territorial, no, because Canada Warbler is a territorial species, but it tends to be like, again, no, attracted to settle kind of close to other males, especially males. So there are other migratory species, but the majority of those studies hasn't really tested this effect using artificial cues. And also the problem sometimes is that is tested in areas that they are not really in breeding, no, season. So because of the behavior change during the winter, it also could be changed, no, the effectivity. But yes, I guess that less social species are not maybe going to be attracted, no, using this technology or well this type of method. But it's something that could be also like test, no, or even this is something that I want to carry on in winter grounds to see also if it happens similar things or not. I know they are not really migrating even among the same species, sometimes with flocks for with other species. So it could be also something interesting to assess like the inter and intraspecific interactions. No?
Yeah, definitely. Aside from the breeding grounds and, like you said, winter migration, lots of different variables to potentially test.
Yeah, even there
Uh,
is it has been used in seabirds, like they for like orientation, like trying to attract them in stopover areas that are like less disturbed, some things like that. So it also could be, you know, the use of this method in this in these cases for
yeah,
other species, not just for seabirds.
but like a totally different context with a
Mm-hmm.
similar phenomenon and result. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So if there's no other questions, you just I think we'll end it here. I would guess. I'm looking in the various different areas that people can ask questions. So we just want to thank Vianney for her great talk today, and thank you everybody for being here. And we will see you next week at the AOS Student Research Grant Seminar Series. See you
Okay.
guys,
Thank you very much.
and thanks a lot.